been waiting in the water, just trying to survive. But God said there's more for me, more than staying alive. I'm stepping into power, into what was always mine. Divine joy rising, it's my time to shine.
Hey, good evening, good evening, good evening. I am coming to you a little bit later, but I'm coming. Anyway, how are you? How are you? I am so glad to be with you here today. My name is Diane Anderson Butts, and this is Daughters of Divine Joy. I'm looking over here at myself on the camera like you're not up there. Okay, so now that I have that straight, today's show, we're going to talk about aunties. I'm an auntie now, so that means a whole lot. There's a lot more meaning to that for me. It's not just a saying. I know people love to call folks that an auntie, but and some folks don't like it because they're not your auntie. But anyway, I do take delight because I love my nephews, and hopefully, I can be the aunties to them that I have had for me. And so the title is The Aunties, the Kitchen, and the Gospel of Still Here. And I want to talk to you today about some of the lessons that we learn from the women in our lives. The aunties, the ones by blood, the ones by marriage, the ones by geographical location because they lived in your neighborhood or in your building. I'm talking about the aunties that you had at church, your mama's work aunties, all the aunties. Whether they were, like I said, family, friends, neighbors. We have lots of aunties, just like we have lots of cousins. People don't always understand that, and that's because they don't understand what it means to live in community. When we live in community, we claim each other. We hold each other accountable. We raise each other, okay? We do things together. We survive together. And so calling someone auntie is not an insult by any imagination. It means you are family. It means we are community. And so I want to talk about what that is and how it helped to groom me if and I know it helped to groom you as well and to raise you up and help you be the person that you are. And so let's go over a few auntie moments that I have in my life, and hopefully you have in yours as well. I have this light on in here, and hopefully it's light enough. I usually have another one, but I'm going to spare y'all the view of me bending over and trying to plug the light in. Um, Even though some people might enjoy that view, but I'm still not giving it to you. Our aunties not only taught us how to walk around in this world with your head up, and not only taught us how to have dignity and discipline, they didn't just teach us how to cook, but also how to cook. Okay. And so let's give them a little respect today and let's honor them by talking about them. For some of us, and me especially, my aunties were like theology. Okay. Before I even knew what theology was, it was theology. They taught me about God. They taught me about Jesus. They taught me how to get a prayer through. They taught me how to make a way out of no way. They taught me how to look in the kitchen and figure out what we're gonna have for dinner based on what's there. Okay. Um, so I want you to understand. I know my energy has changed because I'm reading something. So anyway, I was trying to change the background. Background ain't changed. We had company over. The kids came over. Not good. Um, hmm. Okay, I'm gonna change it. So, like we said, the kids came over. It's a bunch of stuff behind me. I ain't even try to move it because I'm tired. I had jury duty today. And so we're not going to blur this background. You just going to get what I get, okay? Well, sometimes things are out of order. And today is one of those days, okay? So we're just going to keep going. And if y'all looking at what's behind me, good. So you got something to look at today, okay? Very good. Since we got that out in the open, I'm going to continue on with this show because after the last show, I ain't let nothing stop me, okay? I don't care if the microphone's not working, and it is today. I got to keep looking at it to make sure. Um, and so my aunties were, um, they not only taught me how to do my hair, how to wear lipstick, but they also taught me how to be a woman. A black woman, especially a black woman in America. I remember being um, I think I was in the fifth, no, I was in the sixth grade. And I was insisting to this teacher there was more than one way to figure out this fraction problem because I had done it on my paper, but the only thing is it worked fine for that problem. It did not work across the board. So she asked me to do another problem on the board in front of the class, and it did not work with that particular fraction. So, of course, I felt belittled. And so, my aunt told me, listen, this woman is not there because she want to be there. She's there because that's her job. And it's her job to teach you. And it's your job to learn. So you're going to take your little behind back in there, do what you got to do, stop acting like you know everything, and learn. And the next time you get embarrassed at the blackboard, you just turn to her and look her in the eye. Don't you look down on the ground and say, I was just experimenting with some new things. Now I see it doesn't work. Thank you. And sit down. I said, oh, okay. And what I didn't understand then, but I do understand now, my aunt was just telling me how to stand up to her and be respectful at the same time. Because she knew when I went to the board, that question wasn't going to work out the answer wasn't going to work out the way I thought it was going to work out. And my aunt, also a teacher, did not like the fact that she purposely embarrassed me in front of my peers. And so she didn't say that to me. But she just said, if she does that again, I want you to turn around and look her in the eyes. Now, this is a woman who was born in Jim Crow South. My aunt was born in 1925, I think. So, looking white people in the eye can get you killed. But she was in the North, and baby, she lived that. She wasn't scared of anybody at any time, not anymore. And she told me to do that. And it wasn't until much later when I understood the power in what she taught me. Don't be disrespectful, but you also do not give away your agency. You can address the disrespect in a way that's respectful and will not get you in trouble afterwards. But it makes you look like the bigger person and the better person. And that she wouldn't be expecting. What she expects is for me to shrink. What she expected was for me to feel bad and never question her authority. My aunt didn't tell me don't question. She just told me a better way to do it when it comes up short. And I love that. That's one of the lessons I learned from my aunties. My Aunt Hattie was one of my favorite aunts. And that's because she was also my godmother. She also lived upstairs from us, and she was so available and accessible to me. I used to help her grade her papers. I would help her put her grades in her grade book. She This is when I got a little older, like in middle school age. She would let me do all these things. I would cook with her. She taught me how to make applesauce. She taught me how to make peach cobbler. I ain't gonna tell you some of the other things. I saw her cook some victuals like granny clam pit, like some real wild food that people who hunt out in the country would get to eat. I've seen her cook some of that stuff. I ain't eat it. I'm not eating animals of the forest. But she can cook raccoon, she can do anything. But she also had a master's degree, and she also was very good at her job. One of the things I learned about her upon her death was that she had ministered to so many families. There was a woman who worked in the office of one of my friends, and so I would go by lunchtime sometimes and just hang out with them for a minute while they didn't have lunch, or we would just have lunch in the office together. And when I talked about my aunt dying, and this lady, and she was a white lady, she said, "Miss Little?" And I said, "You know my aunt?" She said, "Yes." She said, "Let me tell you about your aunt." And she went on to share the story how my aunt helped her out. She was newly divorced worker. She just broke down and told my aunt. She said, "What time do you need to be at work?" She said, "I have to be at work at 8 o'clock. What time do you need her? What kind can you get your daughter here?" She said, "I can get her here at 7:30." She said, "But that be enough time for you to get to work?" She said, "Yes, I only work, so many minutes away." She said, "Good. I'll be here 7:30. At 7:15, you bring her at 7:30. If you need to bring her earlier, I'll be here." She said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, how much do I have to pay you?" She said, "Bring her here. I didn't ask you for money. I said, bring her here." And that was my aunt, very direct like that. "I didn't ask you for money. Bring her here." That's all I said, bring her here. Okay. And she said, that allowed me to get on my feet. That allowed me to save money that I didn't have, that I would have had to spend on childcare. She said, "Your aunt was so good and so sweet to me and my family." And I was like, "Really?" Then somebody else told me how they were going to put him in special ed, but my aunt said, "Ain't nothing wrong with that boy. He just learned differently. Bring him here after school and I'll work with him." He and I were both school social workers. I had no idea she had intervened with him like that, advocated for him, and took the time to pour into him. That's what I'm talking about with these aunties. And I know you have some stories too. I know there are some women in your life that showed up and showed out, that taught you who you could be, that believed in you when maybe everybody else turned their back. I know you got some aunties in your life. And so these are the women we want to think about. These are the women that show us that God loves us because of how they love us. These are the women that let us know that a word is something you can stand on. It's not just something in the Bible, but it's something that can be lived out. And they showed you how to live it. My aunt gave me a lesson on being prepared. Okay. And we always say, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. But in the Bible, it says, "Be ye prepared." Okay. Whenever she spent money, paper money, and she got change, she would drop the change in her purse. Now, she didn't do a lot of changing of the purses, okay, because women back then didn't have a lot of different choices. So she didn't she didn't have a lot of different purses. But the one thing I noticed, her bag was always heavy. I called her Toto. I said, "Toto, why is your bag so heavy?" She said, "I'm gonna tell you why." She said, "Every time I go to the store and I get change, I put the coins in my pocketbook." And I said, "Really? Why?" She said, "Because eventually they add up, and that way, if you ever run into a situation and you don't have any money on you and the bank is closed, because we have ATMs, so you had to go to the bank, stand on line, and there was no drive-throughs. You had to go into the bank and stand on line to withdraw money. So if you ran out of money, she had the purse money, pocketbook money at the bottom, and I mean, she had money down there. One time I asked her for $5. We wanted to buy some pizza or something, and I asked her for $5. She gave me $5 in quarters out of her purse. And that's something I would do when I was in college. I would put that money in my purse, and guess what? When I had to pull up to the tank, I didn't worry about how much money I had. I had pocketbook money. We would go out to eat. My girlfriend say, "You got money? Did you get your check? You get a little refund check or whatever." "No, I ain't get it, but I got pocketbook money." And I would tell my friends about that too. It was her way of saying, be prepared. This is your emergency stash. Be prepared. Now, I don't do that with change anymore because it's too heavy, but I will take some dollar bills and stash them in my purse in the zipper section. Now, I just told y'all something. If you ever see my purse, don't you go into my zipper section. But I will keep money in that zipper section. I just take it, and it's maybe a few dollars I'll just put in there. And guess what? I keep it in there. I don't take it out when I change purses because unlike my aunt, I have a lot of purses. So I don't change it. I'm telling you this because this is how the world, this is how we were taught to make it. This is how we were taught to always be ready for any eventuality that life may throw your way. And life be we're not gonna let life and put us into a tailspin. We're gonna be ready. I remember sitting in the kitchen. My Aunt Allie would have family barbecue every year. Big family barbecue. They lived in Teaneck, which if you're from Jersey, you know Teaneck is the suburbs. Um, and so they had a big backyard, and everybody would come. And it'd be the one time you see everybody, and it didn't have to be a funeral. Okay. And so everybody would come and they would fry fish in the yard. They would grill ribs in the yard. We would have chicken fried and grilled. I mean, it was so much stuff. It was so much food. And the women would gather in the kitchen, and that's where they would do their chit chatting. And I was not a person that liked to go outside because, I don't know, mosquitoes loved me. And I was allergic to mosquito bites. So I like tried to stay inside. But women in that day would shoo you out of the kitchen. So I would just be quiet and read a book and do something to make them think I was not paying attention. And I would just try to be invisible so I can hear. But I learned so much from those women. I learned about keeping a little stash and hiding away a little money because just in case your husband came up short, you had some money put aside. I learned about one of my aunts was good for getting money orders. Every time she got her check, she'd get a money order for $20 or $15, and she would just keep them. She would just keep them in a drawer. She said, because if I had cash, I might spend it doing something foolish, but you don't want to do, you're not going to take a money order and do something foolish. And once you get it, you just write it to yourself. And she said, if something happened and I needed an extra $200, I got it in the drawer of money orders. I can go deposit it in a bank. We don't do those kinds of things now. We have other ways of saving money, other ways of being prepared. But these were the type of things that I learned about as a child. I'm talking about being 11, 12, 13 years old. By the time I got in high school, yeah, my older cousins would let me hang out. So I no longer did that kitchen thing. But as we got a little older, that kitchen thing turned into something else. And it had pina coladas and margaritas involved. And those ladies talked. And they told you about being a woman. Which brings me to my Aunt Edna. At her funeral, my cousin said that she told her, honey, let me tell you something about men. Don't always wait at night to make love to them. Sometimes you got to put it on them in the daytime. I was like, she said that to you? She did, yup. She said, I don't know who else grandmother talks like that, but mine does. My aunt was so in touch with her femininity. She knew her power as a woman. She was beautiful. She was sexy. She was sensual. She was always well dressed, hair did, makeup did, everything, nails. She wore lashes before anybody else. I mean, it was like whatever the movie stars did, Aunt Edna did. And she was just so simplistic in her fabulosity. You just did because you're a woman, and women should be pampered and taken care of. She was married 3 times, never divorced. Figure that out. Married 3 times, but never divorced. And the one thing she said to me when I needed some advice was, honey, don't ever let a single woman tell you nothing about your man or your marriage. Okay? You talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Don't talk to her because she don't know, or else she'd have a man. It was something with her. She didn't hang out with girlfriends. She would go, but she always had a man with her. She said, I ain't dancing with a bunch of women. That's who she was. And I'm talking about a woman who was raised up at a time where women couldn't even have credit, where women were expected to be taken care of by a man. And honey, every man wanted to take care of Aunt Edna. I learned a lot from her about my own power of being a woman, the power of knowing that you are a sensual being and how not to give it to any old body that enters your door. She used to say, if you really like a man, don't cook for him. Let him take you out. Let him spend his money. Let him show you how much he cares about you. She said, men like to spend money when they care about you. She said, but if you don't like him, cook for him. You probably don't want to be seen out with them no way. I started laughing because she was funny. And she always kept a Cadillac, but never drove it. Always had someone drive her in her car. She was amazing. She was amazing. So, these are some of the women that were in my life that I have learned from. I learned about compassion. I learned about taking care of family. My mother was the one that taught me that. She wasn't an auntie, but she had 5 sisters, and they all had something going on. Um, and something they taught me to make me the woman that I am. And I appreciate that. And I'm telling you, there are moments now when if I start feeling down, and I'm going to suggest you do this too, when you start feeling down about yourself, think about and remember some of the lessons you learned from the women around you. It may not have been your mother, it may not have been a grandmother, but it could have been a teacher, it could have been one of the sisters at church, it could be a neighbor, it could be a man who taught you how to be a woman. It could be a number of people, but who poured into you? And remembering that moment where made you feel alive and strengthened, where you felt seen and heard, where you were understood by them. When they took the time and the care to pour into you because they saw something that was developing and wanted to water it. They saw what God had put into you and they wanted to make sure that you flourished and became all that God had destined you to be. They spoke life over you. What were those words? How did it make you feel? Those days when you feel down and you feel like, I don't know. I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know. Stop. Just stop with the I don't know. Stop with the doubt. Stop with the putting yourself down and wondering, how could I have been so stupid? Don't do that. Remember the aunties and remember how they lavish God's word over you. Because those words coming out their mouth just wasn't their words, it were God's words. It was God using them to pour into you so that at this time of your life, you would have something to go back to, some words to hear again, some words to renew you, some words that would push you along on your way. I'm telling you, these aunties were God's gift to you. They gave you the gospel of still here after having my heart broke, still here after losing a loved one, still here after the bank came and the bills came and my book couldn't handle the weight. I'm still here after unemployment. I'm still here after sickness. I'm still here after divorce. I'm still here after my child got arrested. I'm still here after they graduated and left the house. I'm still here. And so are you, beloved. So are you still here. If you're listening to me, you're alive. And what has happened in your life, the challenges that have come to your front door have not taken you out. Take a deep breath. Fill your lungs. Fill your lungs with air. Breathe out deeply through your nose and know that that is the Spirit of God within you. That is the breath of God. You are still here because someone showed you along the way that you had it in you because they had it in them. And they taught you to be because they were. And we're still here. And we're still here today, and we're going to be here tomorrow too. That's why sometimes people say the news gets them upset. Honey, I watch these people walking around here now acting crazy, and I'm just amused. I'm amused that they can't come up with anything better. I'm amused that they think is actually going to work. I'm amused because I wonder, what do you think I'm going to be doing while you're doing all this nonsense? I'm amused that they still refuse to see our beauty, and I'm amused that they're still afraid of what they do see. I'm amused that they actually think that after 400 years that they have the power to stop us. Baby, we are still here. And there ain't no demon on earth or in hell that can impact that. So the aunties taught us how to be here. So I want to ask you, how are you teaching the next generation how to still be here? I know I do it the old fashioned way sometimes because I got some of them things. I can raise an eyebrow, I can put my hand on my hip, I can give a firm look. I got a side eye game that's pretty good. And baby, I got those for days. And you know, we can speak an entire conversation and never have to do anything but mm, 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 mm. And y'all know what I just said. Every different variation. Oh, and the look over the glasses. And mm, I call her my church mother, the rock. Because, baby, when I get into that rock, I am there. I am in the presence of the Lord. I don't know who's around me. I really don't care who's around me because I'm in the presence of the Lord. And the only thing important is what's going to happen in that presence. What am I getting out of that presence? Because I'm in the presence, believe me. Doesn't matter who's screaming, what baby is screaming, or how loud the TV is. I'm in the presence. Doesn't matter the commotion going on or the kids running through the house. I'm in the presence. And it's just me and God. Y'all can tear the my house down. But anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. What are we passing to the next generation? How are we showing up as the aunties today? Are we teaching them how to survive, or are we showing them something a little bit different? Are we teaching them how to thrive? Are we teaching them how to push past unemployment? Are we teaching them that when someone cuts off your voice, you go over there somewhere and grow another voice? Do things differently. When a door is closed, don't worry about it. Go over there and cut you out a window. Or we're teaching them how to go through the roof when there's no window. Are we telling them that sometimes you don't want to sit at the table? Sometimes you need a different room and a different table because you have other work to do. Are you teaching them about the power of community with your actions, not with your words? Because they're going to do what you say do. They're not going to do what you say do. They're going to do what you do. What they see you doing is what they do. Don't think you can teach with your words because that's duplicitous. If you are not acting what you're saying, no one hears what comes out of your mouth. What how are you showing up for the younger ones? Are you bringing your sassy? Do you show them and teach them about agency? There was one story that was told about my grandmother, and that was all the agency I needed. Okay, I might have needed a little bit more, but that's the story I hung on to as a child. My grandmother's house was located at the end of a street in Fayetteville. And it wasn't like it was woods or a wall. It wasn't like Brewster Place. It wasn't a wall at the end of the street. It was open. It was an open area that looked upon the back of the buildings that were part of the whole commercial area of Fayetteville. It's Murchison Road, I think it's called Murchison's. And so there was a lot of stores and stuff there. It was Murchison Road was a pretty big road, and it was a major thoroughfare. And so this man wanted the property that my grandmother owned beyond the house. She had a little modest house, but she owned a lot of that property that was behind his building. He wanted to expand, and he would take the time to come over to the house to call himself negotiating, but sometimes his negotiations were more like a threat. And one day my grandmother got sick and tired of him. And and when you ready, you done cried your last cry, you done had your last worry, and you done had your last conversation about this topic. But she said, "Hold on, I think I got something for you." He was standing out there waiting with his big hat on, and they dipped snuff, and he was spitting his snuff over on her flowers, which she did not like. She came out with a shotgun. She called his name and said, "I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to get off my land, and 1.5 is already up. So you go, and don't you ever return here again, because there will be no words." And that white man left, and he ain't never come back and never bothered her about her land. Now that's being badass. Because we ain't talking about this it wasn't in the 30s or anything like this. It was in the 50s. It was in the 50s. It was in the 50s. We still wasn't even completely free. We still didn't have voting rights. We were still riding in the back of the buses. And my grandmother said, "Oh, hell no. Today is the day. I got time today." And that was the end of it. My grandmother was a divorced woman. I never knew her to work. I don't know how old she was when I was born, but she was always old to me. And but she had money. I don't know how she got it. I don't know what she did, but she had money. She believed that women needed an education because women needed independence. Women needed income. And so she sent all 5 of her girls to college. It wasn't easy. They didn't have a lot of money, but community would send you to college back in those days. I'm talking to you about this because I want us to make sure we're being the aunties of today. We're teaching our kids about credit scores and FICO scores. We're teaching them about how to put away for a rainy day. But we're also teaching them that whatever retirement instruments they want, they may not be able to depend on the government for their retirement. Teach them about having a passport and about travel. Teach them about taking off the limitations of their skin because they're not their limitations. They're limitations that someone else is trying to put on you. Teach them about their beauty of their origin and their family story. Teach them that they are not the sins of their parents or the problems or issues that their parents had. Teach them that they are beautiful no matter what they see on television and in the magazines, especially when what they see and what they covet doesn't look like them. Teach them who God is, the God of your understanding, the God of your theology. Teach them to think and to question. And when they get the answers, question the answers. Teach them to read and to love it and to find freedom in it. Teach them liberation. So, my sisters and brothers, today I don't have a lot to say, but I do have a lot to say. Because, baby, these classrooms that our children have today aren't always teaching them what they need to know. But if you got a kitchen, you got a classroom. While you stirring those pots, tell some stories about who your people are. Tell the stories about the land your family owned. Tell the stories about how we made a way out of no way. Give your kids something to stand on so that they know that they can stand. Honey, I learned so much from these aunties. I already knew what hot flashes were before I even thought about having one. I understood power, especially power that was wielded at work before I even had a job. I understood that my hair was political before I had an afro. I understood that I was a threat even before I walked in the door, especially when I walked in the door. And they taught me how to handle it, how not to be defined by other people, how to have dignity in the face of situations that were meant to degrade me, how to hold my peace and say my piece. I'm so grateful I wasn't taught to hold things in or hold things down. I did learn a little of that. My mother was not one to express herself, but baby, these aunties, the sisters, they told it like it was. And so I inherited some of that from them. But I also learned how to quietly move, not say anything to anybody, and just show up with the receipts. There's so much gospel in the survival lessons that we were taught. So much so that for some folks, they didn't go to church, but they learned that gospel, baby. They learned it. They learned kindness and compassion. They learned how to give and how to receive. They learned how to stand during the storm. They even learned how to pray, sometimes without even fully understanding who they were praying to. Aunties, aunties showed up in our lives. The aunties showed out in our lives. Honey, put the music on. It didn't matter how the aunties felt because when the rhythm got going and the hips started moving and the hands started clapping, joy, joy was the outcome. Our house was always filled with laughter. And it's funny because sometimes it's because we were doing something wrong, but they always found a way to laugh about it. Sometimes right before you got your butt beat, it was enough laughter in there to make you think you wasn't going to get in trouble, but you did because you had to learn. The laughter and the joy were always built into the recipe of struggle. And the why I'm saying that's a recipe, because had it not been for the joy and the laughter, we would never been got through. We would have never climbed over the mountain. We would have never made the journey. We would not still be here if it were not for the laughter. That's what kept us going. That's what gave us joy for a new day. That's what kept hope burning in our souls, the joy and the laughter, the possibility of a new day, of the next day, of new mercies greeting us in the morning, another opportunity to get it right or to make a mistake, but to learn, another opportunity to learn. My aunties have gone on, but they are still here. They're hearing me. They're hearing my brother. They're hearing my daughter and my nephews. It was so funny. My nephew, the oldest one, has a girlfriend, and he told his dad, I want I want her to meet Aunt Diane. But you know how she is. I'm kind of scared because my girlfriend's real sensitive, and I think Aunt Diane might make her cry. And I was like, how could you say that? Because he said it to me. I said, why would you say that? And in the midst of getting him, because of what he said, I realized that I was playing out exactly what he said. I dug deep in his butt, and she was listening. I said, now that that's finished, I'm not going to do that to you, honey, because you're going to be a guest in my home. I'm going to be on my best behavior. I'm going to be sweet. You're going to love me. And we started talking, and I found out that she too is going into a master's program to become a social worker. And she was telling me the work that she did, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And we were just going on and on. She said, "Oh, I can't wait to meet you." I said, "See," I said, "I told you not to listen to that boy. He don't know what he's talking about. Just because I get on him, that's because I had to try to raise him." I was raising him. That's why I was getting on him. You, I don't need to raise. You're fully grown. I'm sure your parents did a lovely job raising you. That's why my nephew loves you so much. So when we were just talking, but it made me laugh because the very thing he said he was afraid of, that's exactly what I was demonstrating. I was like, no, this is his smoke. You don't get that smoke. You don't get that smoke. But anyway, I am so glad we had this time together. We didn't have a break. Um, and even because we didn't have a break, it's time for me to take a break. It's time for me to just say goodbye to you guys. I was so blessed. Hopefully, I'm setting some things up, and hopefully, I can have a guest next week or sometime when she's available. I want you all to pray for my daughter. She was jumping double dutch at work. She's 35 and tore her Achilles tendon. So this happened last Thursday. Um, I ended up having to run to Jersey anyway, so I was, tended to her and what was going on with her. She had surgery on Tuesday, and I spent the night with her, and so she's doing fine now. Um, and I had to leave her yesterday so I can come back here and have my grand jury duty. And that's a trip, but I can't tell you about it because I'll get arrested or something. And I don't want to get arrested. So, but anyway, I am contributing to my community by serving on the jury. And here I am with you today. So, this is the PA Empowerment Network. I pray you tune in and watch all the wonderful shows that we have on here Monday through Thursday. Join us. And as you move through this week, I want you to think about the aunties. Think about what they taught you. Think about how they shaped you. Think about how they corrected you, how they lifted you up, how they made you feel invincible, how they made you feel so loved and so protected, how they taught you and raised you and made you strong. And even some of the examples that they showed you that you don't ever want to repeat, they taught you that too. Whisper a prayer to God and thank God for all that you became because of the aunties that God placed in your life. We are standing on their shoulders. We are because they were. And we should celebrate that every time we get tired, every time we accomplish something great, every time we break a barrier, every time we do something we thought was impossible. Say thank you, God. The aunties are still here, still showing me how great I can be, still celebrating me, and still giving me applause. We thank God for aunties, baby. Now you going out there and be as good of an auntie as you have had, and even better, because our children deserve it. Our babies need us, and we need them. Amen. Thank you so much for tuning in to Daughters of Divine Joy. Please join me over at Substack. You can look me up, Diane A. Butts, the Divine Joy Declaration. Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, yes. So go over there. There's some things to read. Substack is for readers, honey. It's just an outlet for writers to share the things they're passionate with. And I share some things over there as well. So I'll see you over there if you'd like. It's free. Just subscribe. You don't have to pay a dime. Just ignore that pay page if you want to. Now, if you want to pay me for my efforts, go right ahead. But I thank you and I appreciate you. And I'm sending love out to each and every one of you. And I pray that you are in good health. And that's something that was said here touched your heart and made your day. Amen. Amen. God bless you and see you next week at
Been waiting in the water, just trying to survive. But God said there's more for me, more than staying alive. I'm stepping into power, into what was always mine. Divine joy rising, it's my time to shine.
touched your heart.